the first 5 years of my business, I did not miss marketing ever. Every single week,
Yeah.
marketing went out for 5 years straight. So the 16-month journey of the struggle, and sold it and made $107,000 net
Wow.
and never looked back since. Bought my first duplex when I was 20, flipped my first house when I was 22. Been doing it for like the last decade.
Hey guys, this is Sharat with REsimpli, host of the REsimpli podcast, bringing you a super special guest, Austin Rutherford, on this podcast. Austin, welcome to REsimpli podcast. How are you?
I'm fantastic, bro. Appreciate the opportunity. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely, man. I know you're super busy. You just became a new dad 2 weeks ago. So, congratulations. Thank you so much for taking time and being on the podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you live? What kind of investing do you do? Where do you invest? And just tell us about your real estate journey so far.
Yeah. So born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. Started off investing in Columbus. Bought my first duplex when I was 20. Flipped my first house when I was 22. Been doing it for like the last decade. Moved to South Florida about 3 years ago, but still do the investing in Columbus, Ohio. So started out doing a lot of flips, then a little bit of wholesaling, and then now, really just kind of focusing on building the rental portfolio. We got 150-ish units now, between single family, small multifamily. I own an office building and a couple warehouses. So just trying to continue building the portfolio.
Yeah. And is everything in Ohio market? Or do you
It
do
is.
anything in Florida too?
No, everything's in Ohio.
Yeah. And you said you started out buying a duplex when you were 20. How did that come about? Like, were you always interested in real estate or how did that happen?
Yeah, I my original dream was to go to the NBA. That didn't quite work out. So then I ended up with the book Think and Grow Rich in my hands, which opened up my mind to thinking bigger, which led to learning about passive residual income. And I was like, that sounded pretty nice, passive residual income. So that led me to rentals. And then I just kind of started learning. I bought those $50, $100 books that they would send you in the mail, or the little CDs that they would send you. This is a decade ago. They probably don't do much of that anymore. And just tried to learn everything I could, and started looking at houses, built like a little spreadsheet, PITI and income. I really didn't
Yeah.
understand, vacancies, repairs, all that other stuff. And, found a deal that cash flowed. I had about 30 grand saved, just from cutting grass, shoveling driveways, flipping Buckeye necklaces as a kid. And just bought it traditionally, put just a down payment. It was already operating. It was a turnkey rental. And then realized that it took me 20 years to buy one rental property, and I had to make more money faster to keep buying rental properties. And then got licensed as a realtor because the agent made a bunch of money. And then found a mentor that taught me the business of flipping houses.
So you bought your first duplex at 20, then you did your first flip at 22. So you were just kind of, getting ready to do your next deal those couple of years.
Yeah, so I bought the duplex, and then 6 months later, I was valeting cars at the time. I was driving into work, and I heard one of those good old radio ads. And I was like, if you want to learn how to flip houses, come to this free
Yeah.
2-hour seminar, right? And I was like, I'm in, sign me up. And went to the 2-hour seminar. That went to like a 3-day seminar. That went to a $25,000 coaching program that I invested in. Pulled out a new credit card, maxed it out, 18 months, no interest. Thought I was going to get rich overnight. That's not quite how things work.
Yeah.
And from that day to the day I actually flipped and sold my first property was a 16-month journey. So it took me 10 months to find and buy that first flip, and then another 6 months to buy, renovate, and sell it. So it was a 16-month journey of the struggle, and sold it and made $107,000 net, true
What?
net profit, and
Wow.
that never looked back since.
So you're like, okay, 107,000, probably more money than you were making at that time doing everything else combined.
For
So like,
sure.
okay, this is what you're going to do full time. Is that kind of you decide to leave everything and just start flipping houses full time?
Yeah, not quite. A lot of people I'm around say, like, I lean more on the conservative side. And so I made 107,000 4 days after my 22nd birthday. And I didn't travel. I didn't go out to dinner. I didn't buy a pair of sneakers. I didn't celebrate at all. And I went back to working, valeting cars, working 50 to 60 hours a week. I went back to college, taking 15 credit hours, because there's like a little piece in the back of my head. It was like, did I just get lucky? Like, it's one deal, right? And, 3, 4 months later, I flipped another house, made about $40,000 in profit. So I was about 150,000 in, a few months. And then I was like, all right, this is real. And then dropped out of school, quit my valet job, and then went full time into real estate.
Then you started flipping houses full time?
Yeah, that's what I was taught kind of coming into the business was flipping houses using other people's money. So that's what I did. I had for the first, I don't know, 2 or 3 years of business, I didn't do a flip with less than $100,000 rehab budget. So we were doing heavy
Wow.
whole gut rehabs. My first deal, the one I profited $107,000 on, it was a $74,000 purchase and a $170,000 construction budget. So
What?
it was
The
learn,
first flip?
yeah.
Wow.
600 square foot
Wow.
addition, 25,000 into the foundation, MEPs, roof, window, siding, gutters, LVLs, everything. And so I got where I worked downtown Columbus. The house was like 5 minutes from there. So I went every day because I just wanted to see, I wanted to see the contractors and hear them talk. And, by at that point, like we essentially built a new house at that point. So I was like, man, like I did this, I can go, do any deal. Right. So it was a blessing in disguise, but it was definitely scary on the front end.
That is insane. I don't think I've ever heard anyone do that extreme of a flip as they flip. So you bought the house and you spent 2.5 times the purchase price in rehab. That's
Yeah.
insane, man. I mean, but you made 107,000, so you can't blame that. So you're flipping houses. I mean, with flipping, I flip about 25, 30 houses a year. So you make pretty decent chunk of cash.
Yeah.
And you're wholesaling also. You started wholesaling also since you're doing full time. And then like what happened? Then you're like, okay, this is great, but I want to start building. Well, like what triggered that for you?
Yeah, no, this is the part that I love. So, when I started, like 95% of my business was flips. And then I think I bought, I don't know, maybe 10 or 20 rentals in the first 5 years. And so, I would just pick off a couple here and there. And then built some new construction, sold them, learned about wholesaling, started wholesaling, and again, buying very few rental properties along the way. And then 5 years into the business, I got a really good friend, and now he's a really good friend. But when we started real estate, we were actually in real estate class together. We were both getting into it. And when he started, he was the opposite of me. I was 95% flips. He was 95% rentals using the Burr method. And so early on in our career, year 1, 2, 3, 4, I was making way more money than him. I was able to go on vacations and, have a nicer house. And he would always ask, like, bro, like, I don't have any cash. Like, what's going on? And then 5 years in, had a call with him. We touch base often. And I was like, man, like, how's business? He's like, bro, I just did a refinance. I was like, all right, well, tell me about this refinance. He's like, well, I took 30 of my 100 plus single family rentals and I refinanced them. I was like, all right, cool. He's like, and on the refi, I paid off 10, which that alone creates 10 to $12,000 a month in true net cash flow. I re-leveraged the other 20, which, might bring in another $2,000 a month. So, 15-ish grand a month in, net income off of one transaction. He said, and I pulled $1 million out on top of that tax free. I was like,
Oh,
come again. And he said it again. And at that point in business, $1 million tax free, as you know, is really $1.5 million in actual profit because you got
yeah.
to pay a third of it in taxes. And to that point, I never made $1 million in a year, let alone $1.5 million in a year on one transaction. And that was the day my business changed. The next day, I went into my office and we flipped the entire business model. We went from 90 to 95% flips to like 70 to 80% rentals. And again, our methods, the Burr model, using other people's money. So, that was about 3 years ago. And, basically been doing that ever since.
All right. So you just listen, talk to your friend. You're like, oh, I'm just doing it totally the wrong way. I gotta just start buying rental properties. So you just go out on this buying, shopping, spree of buying rental properties in the area, and then you're buying them with cash, you're using other people's money upfront. Like, how are you financing these deals?
Yeah, no, everything's private money. So I've raised, I don't know, $35 million in the last, since I started investing in real estate. So we get the purchase and the rehab 100% funded from private money lenders. We typically pay 8 to 12% depending on who it is. And then we buy it, renovate it, rent it out, and then take it back to a bank and refinance out of it. And then our goal is to be in for less than 75 cents because that's what the bank will give us back on the refi. So my book, it says get free houses. So it's like once you hit the refi, you pay off all debt and now you own an asset without using any of your own money. So that's the model. Obviously, all of those are never perfect. You may have to have a couple grand here, a couple grand there. But yeah, it's private money on the front end, and then small local community bank or DSCR loans on the back end.
So is there a limit on how many loans you can get? Like typically, with most lenders, you can get 10 loans, including your primary residence.
Yeah, so that's Fannie and Freddie. So small local community banks, they don't track to my personal credit. So each bank does have a cap. Some are like 3 mil, some are five, some are $10 million in total loans to any individual. And then, when the market kind of shifted, 2-ish years ago and rates started going through the roof, the using small local community banks, the cash flow, the DSCR ratio wouldn't pencil. So they essentially couldn't lend without me having, 50% as a down payment, right? And I don't want to have that much money in a deal. So then we went to DSCR loans. We're actually using what's called an interest only loans. So they're 10-year IO and then they're 20-year amortizing after that. So my plan is to use the interest only loans to make deals that were not deals still cash flow because of the high interest rates, and then at some point in the next 2 to 10 years, go back and refinance a full portfolio of all the ones that are on interest only terms.
So you have probably, given the size of the portfolio that you probably have relationship with multiple local banks in your market, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And how do you go about that? Did you just like start calling local lenders? Is that something like a newer investor can also build, or you need to have some little bit of credibility, a little bit of experience before you can start doing that?
Yeah. I mean, you can do it at any point, right? The first like 7, 8 rental properties that I did were Fannie Freddie. So I refinanced them conventionally with conventional mortgages in my personal name. So I had like a little bit of credibility at that point. And then again, the same buddy that I was talking to you about, he's like, you're going to have to start talking to these small local community banks at some point. And I was like, yeah, I know, but I have 10 loans. I'm good. I got 2 more. And, I hit that. And all the local community banks that I've worked with have actually been through referrals from different people. So, I ask people, hey, who are you doing lending with? They'll tell me. I'm like, great. What terms are you getting? If they sound good, then I'll just ask, like, hey, do you mind making an introduction for me? And then sometimes they will, and sometimes they won't. But it's been just through referrals thus far. You can cold call. I have cold call, but I haven't
Right.
done a deal from cold calling. The deals I've done have been through
Through
referrals.
referral. And are they called portfolio lenders, meaning they keep the loans within their portfolio? They don't sell to Freddie and Fannie. Is that right?
Correct. Yep. They keep them
Okay.
all.
Right. And are all the community banks portfolio lenders, or it depends bank to bank?
Um, that's a good
Because,
question. I
yeah,
I think they're all portfolio
yeah,
lenders, but
interesting.
I'm
Yeah.
not 100%.
And they have a little bit more flexibility on their loan process, right? Especially if you're working with someone higher up in the bank. So these would be banks that have like 2 to 5 branches in your local area, and then you
Correct.
just call up and build relationship with the person. Yeah.
100%. And it is relationship based. Like, there's lenders that, I'll go to that I'll get a 25-year term with a 10-year balloon. And, a new person would go and get a 20-year AM with a 5-year balloon.
Right.
So, as you do more deals, and the better the deal and the more bankable you are, the better terms that you can get with these banks.
Absolutely. And you also have, so you're doing successful, acquisition of rental properties. And then you also have a very successful coaching business where you're helping others, newer investors starting out in the business, like basically do the same thing that you're doing. Tell me a little bit more about like how did that happen? Like what was the inspiration behind that?
I was doing this business, and inevitably people start asking how you can help them and how they can get started. So I was doing free meetups, helping people when I could, going to the lunches and the breakfasts and the coffees and all those things and helping everybody. And at some point you just get asked so much that you can't help everyone. So any product that I've ever came up with, coaching courses, masterminds, events, have come from asks. So, I just kept getting asked and asked and asked. The real like kind of turning point for it, I wanted to buy a Rolls Royce 3 or 4 years ago. So I challenged myself. I always like anything I do in life, I always try to ask myself how I can get somebody else to pay for it. So I challenged myself. I was like, all right, cool. I need to start a new business and I need to generate $100,000 in revenue. So I was like, cool, let's go into the coaching and develop a coaching program. And then on the second side to it is like, if a Rolls Royce is going to cost me, $2,000 a month, whatever the number is, if you net cash flow, $100 or $200 per unit per month, I need to go buy 15 more rental properties to cover the cost of the Rolls Royce. So that's kind of what triggered that. So I started Elevate Life, which is my personal brand coaching business, to generate the new $100,000 in revenue. And then I went out and bought more rental properties. And then, again, I like playing games. One of my mentors told me to gamify things, and
Right.
it makes it better. But
Yeah.
that's how Elevate came about.
Oh, I love that, man. I love that you thought about, you were so tactical about down to the numbers. Okay, I need these many units. This is how much they're going to cash flow. And it was through the rental properties that you were going to pay for the car. Did you end up buying the car?
Yeah. Right. Yep.
Nice, nice. What
Yep.
color?
It's what well, it was off white, but we wrapped it matte white.
Nice,
So
nice.
it's got red interior, red guts.
Yeah. How many students are you coaching right now? Or
Uh,
like how many students have you coached?
Yeah, so there was courses before that, which had a couple hundred of those, and then throughout the actual coaching program, couple few hundred, maybe 300-ish,
Wow.
um, throughout the last, I don't know, it's been 3.5, 4 years now.
Right.
Uh, so yeah, again,
That's incredible.
it started, helping people like, build a wholesaling business. And now what I enjoy is, building a portfolio, building wealth. Like you said, I got a science, wealth is through
Yeah, I
ownership.
see that.
So I got to fix one of those letters, but, that's what I enjoy. Like I enjoy owning real estate. So that's what, I help people do now.
So you've coached hundreds of students, and I'm sure you noticed that there's some students that are going to be more successful than the others. I always like to ask other coaches, like, what is it that you notice, in the students that you're coaching, the ones that are more successful versus the ones that don't quite, get to the point that you want them to? Like, what do you notice is the biggest difference?
That's a great question. And it's funny because, like, I don't know about you, but typically you can kind of notice, like, right away who's going to be successful or not. And it's the people that come in and actually do the work. Like, the shortcut to success is the work, right?
Right.
People that show up to the calls and have questions, because if you don't have questions, you're not implementing. Because if you don't have questions, like, you're not learning, you're not doing something and failing, right? So people that come back with questions continuously, like they've made cold calls and they're asking for help how to get over a rebuttal, or they've walked a house and they're sending me a picture link asking me how to estimate repairs, or they've bought a house
Right.
and now they're trying to, ask me how to raise money and talk to private money lenders. So the action takers that actually go out there and do and then come back with questions are typically the people that I see, that are going to be successful. And like another thing I say about real estate is like real estate is not an if game, it's a win game. It took me 16 months to make my first penny, actually investing into real estate. So I talk to people all the time and they're like, man, like I'm depressed. I haven't got my first, second, third, fifth, 10th deal, whatever it is. This sucks. I'm like, all right, cool. How long have you been marketing for? They're like, well, 2 months. I'm like, all right, we'll do it for another year and then come talk to me. Right. Or it's like, how much marketing are you doing? They're like, well, I'm making, 3 or 4 phone calls a day. It's like, all right, make 100 calls a day for the next 6 months, then come talk to me, right? The shortcut to success is the work. Like that's the only shortcut.
I 100% agree. I think like too many people, we notice this all the time. People will do one marketing for a month and it doesn't work. They're like, oh, this marketing doesn't work. I'm like, no, it does work. It didn't work for you because you didn't try it long enough. It's like going to the gym for a day and expecting to have six packs. So like, oh, going to gym doesn't work. That's
Yeah.
not how the game works. It's like people that are consistent day in, day out. And that's what you answered is like what I hear consistently across from other coaches is so people that put in the effort are the ones that are succeeding. Like people that come in and ask, like kind of you gave a perfect example. Hey, how do I estimate the rehab? How do I raise private money? Those are the ones that are going to be successful versus people that come in and say, hey, what's wholesaling? Can you teach me wholesaling?
Yep.
See, it is like such a broad topic, but if you came and say, "Hey, I'm negotiating with this seller, and the seller has this house for 200,000, I can only pay 100, but the seller is 110. Like, what do you think I can do?" I mean, that's a specific question. That's a problem that you want to add value to. Versus you say, "How do I wholesale or how do I flip a house?" It's like, okay, it's such a broad topic. You can probably Google and get a much better answer and go to a YouTube video.
No,
Um,
that was a perfect example. Like that's
yeah,
that's a nitty gritty in the game. You need
yep,
like real help type of thing. And the other thing to like the marketing side, because like that's where I see most people fail. It's like they just like, oh, I don't get a deal and I quit, right? And the thing with it is like the first 5 years of my business, I did not miss marketing ever. Every single week,
Yeah.
marketing went out for 5 years straight. No, on holidays, on Christmas, on New Year's, on my birthday, when I was sick, when I was celebrating, when I was on a cruise, no matter what, when, where, how, what I was doing, marketing went out every single week for 5 years straight. And it didn't stop at 5 years, it changed. That's when I started building my personal brand, and I get a lot of deal flow from social media. But like paid marketing, direct mail, cold calling,
Right.
PPC, 5 years straight of doing that. So it's like
Yeah.
consistency wins. Like every marketing
Absolutely.
channel works as long as you stay consistent with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're still marketing consistently, but you're like marketing to a different audience now than what you were doing. It's like I tell investors all the time, like as real estate investors, we're in marketing business. Like once you stop doing marketing, your business just basically stops. Like you have no leads coming in, no deals coming in. So it's like so important. Like if you're not being consistent with marketing, then you might as well not do anything. Yeah. So what
100%.
is it that you're noticing for your students that's working right now? Like what are you teaching them that you see with, the interest it's trying to come down. There's like hope that it'll come down even further. Like, so what do you see working in the market?
Yeah, as far as finding deals, PPC, people are doing well with that. Cold call, I saw a video on social media like a year ago, and it was another coach, and the coach was like, if your mentor tells you to drive for dollars, like you need a new mentor. And for me personally, I've made millions and millions of
Yeah.
dollars driving for dollars and cold calling. So, again, you can't scale to 100 deals a month off of that. Like it's only so scalable. But like I'm buying a deal, a $7 million deal for 50 cents on the dollar. I'll be all in for 50 cents on the dollar in 2 weeks from driving for dollars. So it's like it works, right? And so I see people having a lot of success with that. And then flips, the market's kind of weird right now. So people are still selling. There's just maybe a little bit of price drops, maybe a little bit of seller concessions. Even for myself, we typically never gave seller concessions. Now we're giving, $1,000 to $5,000 in seller concessions to get the deal going. And then the other thing on the rental side, with high interest rates and high prices, to get deals to cash flow, again, we're using the interest only strategy, which reduces our monthly mortgage payment, which helps deals potentially cash flow more.
Yeah. Are you trying to buy anything on like with creative financing, or you don't even look into that? Like, I'm just going to use my private money, keep it super simple.
Yeah, like I've bought one subject to deal in the past. I've presented, seller financing to sellers multiple times. They've never taken it. But it's in it's a strategy, but it's not my go-to.
Right. It's definitely tough. I mean, it's always worth offering, but I've noticed like most of the sellers, they just want cash. They have some situation that's they're going through. They just need the cash right now and move on. And it
Yeah.
keeps the situation very simple. You don't have any issues down the road. What is like when you look ahead, like couple, 2, 3 years down the road, what does success look like to you for your real estate business and also for your personal brand? Where do you see that going?
I love it. It's like 5, 10 years from now. What do you want? To me, that's like too far away, right? A lot of things can change in 10 years. So like the next goal for me is building the portfolio to $100 million. So that's, between single family or new construction, a lot of it, starting more in the affordable housing sector, and then also the industrial warehouse side. So I've bought one, I'm buying another one, triple net leases. I'm learning that world, which I love. So build a portfolio to 100 million between, industrial and continuing, the Burr model. So that's on the real estate side. And then on the education side, is to, one of the goals is to make 100 other millionaires, whether that's through
I
flipping
love
houses,
that.
wholesale, and building a rental portfolio. Probably a little bit of all the above, because
Right.
I believe to be truly successful in this business, you do have to have a couple strategies, one to generate some revenue and one to build wealth long term. So
Yeah.
those are some of the goals.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, man. Yeah, and I do agree with you. Like 5, 10 years down the road, it's like too far out. I think like 3 years is like the max you kind of want to look at, where you can still kind of see, the horizon. I think 5, 10 years is just way too long. And I
Right.
noticed that you're wearing a hoodie that says Gold Digger. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, what does that signify for you? Like, how does that play a role in your life?
Yeah, that's fun. So when I'm out and about, a lot of people think it's like gold digger and they'll like whisper
Yeah.
at me. I'm like, no,
I
it's
had to be careful to make sure that I was saying gold digger and not gold digger. Yeah.
Yep. So this hoodie came, it was years ago, like I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. I listen to Meek Mill a lot. You know, he kind of gets me hype back in the
Yeah.
day. And you know, I saw him wearing it one day, and you know, I was like, I like that hits home to me. You know, like
Yeah.
I want to grow. I want somebody who wants to grow with me. I want, you know,
Yeah.
goal for everything, right? If you don't know where if you don't have a target, you know, how are you ever going to hit it?
Yeah.
So, you know, I just kind of saw it in a rap video one day, and I was like, I got to give me one of those.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love that. You seem like the kind of person you're like very driven by goal. Like if you want to do something, like you analyze, okay, this is what needs to happen. Like even when you were talking about, what 2, 3 years time, like you're very specific about, okay, I want to have a portfolio of $100 million and I want to make 100 millionaires. I love that. So like it gives you a very objective way to see, if I'm like if you're in the right path or not, versus like people saying, oh, I want to add value, like something very generic. Like there's no way to like kind of measure if you're going in the right direction or not. They might be going the right direction, but like having a set timeline of where you want to get, and what do you want to achieve by then, I think that's absolutely amazing. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. So,
Sure.
Austin, this has been absolutely incredible. Got a couple of more questions for you. You just became a new father, so I'm sure you're running on lack of sleep, but whatever time you get, what do you do for fun?
Yeah, great question. I love playing basketball. You know, I said earlier on, my dream
Yeah,
was the NBA. So I'm still getting up and down the court. I'm a competitor at the end of the day. So love
yeah,
that. And then just hanging out with my wife. You know, it's
yeah,
me, my wife, our first kid now. You know, we watch movies, you know, shows often, but just spending time with them. You know,
yeah.
family's everything.
Favorite basketball team?
Um, I like LeBron, so I've
Yeah,
been bouncing around.
nice, nice. Yeah, yeah. He's gone to what, 3 different teams now, right?
Yep,
Three, four
yep.
different teams. Yeah. All right. What's the one book that's had the biggest impact in your life? It could be a personal book, it could be a business book, or one of each.
Think and Grow Rich. You know, I read that when I was 19-ish,
Oh,
18, 19, and it changed my life
yeah.
100%.
Is that a book you go back to every year or every so often just to kind of, keep reinforcing those principles?
Yeah, I've read it like maybe 3 or 4 times, so every
Yeah.
2 or 3 years. I need to read
Yeah.
it again, honestly. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I asked just because I'm actually reading it right now. I feel like
nice.
I need to get back into that mindset. So,
Yep.
final question. If you could spend a day with anyone, dead or alive, who would you want to spend the day with and why?
Yeah, it's a good question. Anyone. So
Dead or alive?
I want to just throw out an answer. Maybe I would have to give a real answer. I'd have to spend some more time thinking, but one that comes to mind is the Rockefeller. You know, the amount of wealth that he generated. I just like seeing how people think. Like I just want to
Yeah.
know like, how you process something. So when an issue comes out, how do you process it? When you hire somebody, how do you process it? When you want to grow a business or generate revenue, how do you process it? And you know, from the readings, he was super successful, you know,
Yeah.
very, very rich. So I just, you know, I'd like to kind of see like how his brain works.
I love that answer, man. That's a great. Have you read his biography?
I don't think so, but I need
Yeah,
to.
it's a very, very thick book. It's a very, very thick book. It's like, I don't know, like 600, 700 pages. I started on it like a couple of times and then like one third way into the book, I'm like, oh no, I could have done like three other books in this time. Yeah. All right, Austin, anyone listening to this wants to connect with you, learn more about your journey and about the coaching program you have, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I'm on all social medias, Austin Rutherford. I respond on Instagram at Austin Rutherford Official. I respond to all my DMs personally, so shoot me a DM. Would love to connect with you on there.
Perfect. We'll make sure we put links to all of that in the show notes. Austin, thank you so much. Congratulations again on being a new father. Good luck with everything you got going. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sherrod.
Thanks.